And we are back with yet another major update to Dead by Daylight featuring the 8.4.0 patch notes, which comes with the brand new chapter update, the Doomed Course, featuring a brand new killer, the HoundMaster, as well as the survivor, Taurie Cain. So today, like usual, we're going to be going over all of the changes to all said perks, the killer, as well as doing an overview of the new killer. There are a lot of changes to various perks, as well as some specific killers getting some vast and interesting changes, such as Michael Myers and the Lich. So, without taking too much longer on this intro, let's get right into it. So let's start off with one of the more major ones being Michael Myers, aka The Shape. He's getting a very interesting slight rework to the way his ability works in terms of his stalking, but let's start with the fact that his base movement speed while in Evil Within Tier 1 has been increased to 4.4 from 4.2, so he now has the equivalent movement speed of like slower killers such as the Hag or the Spirit. They've also increased the maximum amount of stock points to be gained from survivors from 10 to 20, essentially meaning that you can stalk all survivors for twice the amount of time now. On top of that, they've decreased the amount of Evil Within required to reach Evil Within 2 from 5 to 3, so it's a lot quicker to get from Evil Within 1 to 2 now as well, which is nice. But one of the main changes is a rework to the way his stalk ability works for gaining Evil Within. They have increased the Evil Within gain multiplier when stalking from afar to 1, which used to be 0.1, and they have decreased Evil Within gain multiplier when stalking from up close to 0.4, which used to be 1. Essentially, this is a huge change on how Michael's meant to work, and he's meant to be stalking from afar, because as you know, his stalking ability to gain Evil Within was very much based on how close you were to the person. You'd gain more if you were up close. Now, they are changing it so that you would instead gain much more stalking when from a distance. This will allow you to actually play more like a stalker rather than having to get up close to somebody to actually gain any decent progress. And also, it's worth noting the fact that they changed that so the minimum gain is no longer 0.1, the minimum gain is now 0.4, so being at a maximum distance of the stalking is no longer as punishing. It's also worth noting before that we move on, that there have been some slight and also some major changes to some of his most known add-ons, such as increasing and or decreasing the amount of stock required to attain its effects, and also decreasing the movement speed on the scratched mirror. Alright, moving on to the Demogorgon, he is getting some slight but quite helpful changes to his base kit, starting off with decreasing the portal setting time from 1 second to 0.85 seconds, minimal but helpful. They've also decreased the portal entry time from 1.5 seconds to 1.35 seconds, also minimal but helpful. But one of the more major ones is they have increased the upside down travel speed from 20 meters a second to 28 meters a second, a nearly 50% increase in movement speed. Very nicely helpful. Next up, we have some minor changes to the GhostFace. They are decreasing his Nitron's cooldown time from 20 seconds to 17 seconds, and a nice little decrease to the amount of time it takes to mark a survivor from 5 seconds to 4.5 seconds. Next up, we have some small changes to the good guy, aka Chucky, where they are decreasing the time it takes to perform a scamper from 1.3 seconds to just 1 second, and they're also increasing Hidey Ho mode's cooldown from 10 seconds to 12 seconds. Next up, a very small change to the Mastermind, aka Albert Wesker. We are getting a slight decrease to the cooldown on Virulent Bound from 6 seconds to 5.5 seconds. This may be minimal, but you never know. It could help. Alright, coming up next is the Dark Lord, aka Dracula. We're going to getting some minor kit changes all around. So, starting off, we have the Shapeshift cooldown being increased from 2.5 seconds to 3.5 seconds. And the Vampire form is going to have its Hellfire cooldown increased from 7 seconds to 10 seconds, so a little bit less spammy with the Hellfire. After that, the Wolf form is getting some slight changes. They are increasing the spawn rate of Scent Orbs to be 1 every 5 seconds instead of 1 every 6 seconds. And after that, the Wolf's Pounce charge time is going to be decreased from 1 second to 0.85, which, to be honest, I didn't really care about, but I appreciate the little buff. Finally, in terms of the killer balance changes, we have the Lich, also known as Vecna. It's going to have a big variety of balance changes to many spells as well as different functions in general. So, starting off with the spell's cooldowns, they are decreasing the Dispelling Sphere's cooldown from 38 to 35 seconds, as well as Flight of the Damned in the same manner. They are decreasing the Fly's cooldown from 38 seconds to 25 seconds, massive decrease there, so that way you can at least more consistently use it to be a mobility option instead of wanting to save it for when it's really necessary. Mage Hand's cooldown is going to be receiving a 2-second increase from 38 to 40, which isn't major, but it's good to know. As for the actual function changes, They have increased the cooldown after canceling a spell from 1 second to 1.25, which means specifically if you are going to ready a spell, but then you don't actually cast it and just cancel the ability in general. So you just get a little teensy bit longer duration. Finally, they have decreased the time Dispelling Sphere disables magic items from 60 seconds to 45 seconds. I feel like this is one of the more notable ones, but also, in fairness, the time that it is disabled and the fact that some items are disabled isn't the biggest deal. It's also important to note that the Dispelling Sphere does not deactivate the relic artifacts, so they are still able to be used, such as the Eye of Vecna and Hand of Vecna. Alright, so moving on to the killer perk updates. A lot of these are very minor and not super noticeable changes, so I won't be providing very much or any at all footage for the differences, because you'll be able to probably tell just from them directly, but the visual changes aren't that major. So, starting off with distressing, they're going to be changing the tear radius increase variables from 22, 24 to 26 to 20, 25, and 30%, which is a small buff, but not a big importance. The more important part is the fact that they are removing the 100% more blood points gained for the deviousness category. Next up is dominance. They are increasing the time the entity blocks the totem or chest by an extra 8 seconds for all variables, from 4, 6, and 8 to 8, 12, and 16. After that, we have Hex Thrill the Hunt. Didn't expect to see this on here. For each dull totem remaining on the map, they are increasing the variables that it reduces the cleansing and blessing speed by a total of 4% for each tier. So it's going from 8, 9, and 10% to 10, 12, and 4%. So it's going to take a good while longer to cleanse and bless. However, they are removing the additional 10% blood points for the hunter category, depending on each token. Another blood point value gone. After that, we have Human Greed. They're reducing the cooldown on kicking the chest closed from 60, 45, and 30 seconds to 30, 25, and 20 seconds. So it's a lot shorter depending on your tier. After that, we are having a major buff to Languid Touch. They're reducing the cooldown of Languid Touch's ability from 20 seconds to 5 seconds. This is very powerful now, actually, because this will allow you to consistently make it so that not only just people around you, but anyone you're in a chase with will always have exhaustion, assuming they actually touch a crow. And finally, the baned perk of a lot of survivors, Weave Attunement, is getting a slight change. They are reducing the range that survivors are affected by Weave Attunement from 12 meters to 8 meters. However, survivors can also now see the item's aura when they are being afflicted by it. Alright, moving on to the Survivor perk changes, but before we get to that, just a small general change to survivors in general, as they are decreasing the time it takes to unlock the chests from 10 seconds to 8 seconds, so a short little 2-second timer there. So for the actual perks, starting off with Ace in the Hole, it is having a pretty nice change happening, where they are changing the maximum rarity you can get of an add-on from very rare to ultra rare, so you could possibly get brand new parts or syringes and such. They're also increasing the chances of finding an uncommon secondary rarity add-on or lower from 50% to 100% chance. Also, they are allowing you to keep the add-ons if you escape with the item. Next up is No One Left Behind. They are changing it so that the survivors no longer get additional blood points for healing and unhooking other survivors, and they are also increasing the action speed bonus while healing or unhooking survivors from 30, 40, and 50% to 50, 75, and 100%. Top of that, they are also increasing the movement speed bonus that survivors get when unhooking them from 7% for 10 seconds to 10% for 15 seconds. After that, we have Pharmacy getting a few changes. They are removing the injured requirement for Pharmacy to activate, and they are also increasing it so that chests unlock 100% faster rather than 80% faster. They are also increasing the distance in which noises are reduced while opening a chest from 8 meters to 20 meters. After that, we have a very nice Plunder's Instinct change, where they are buffing the distance where you can see unopened chest auras from 16, 24, and 32 meters to 32, 48, and 64 meters. They are also increasing the odds of finding higher rarity items and chests just to a flat 50 instead of 14, 24, and 46%, but none of these odds were really shown. They just said considerable or some word of the sort, so some clarity is nice. Finally, we have a scene partner change, where they are increasing the base duration where you see the killer's aura after streaming from 3, 4, and 5 seconds to 4, 5, and 6, and they are also reducing the cooldown for scene partner from 60 seconds to 40 seconds. Not gonna lie, I was expecting this one to get a nerf. Not that it needed one, it's just I kinda thought that was the direction they're going with, but whatever works. Alright, moving on to the main event, we have the brand new chapter featuring the new killer, the HoundMaster. The HoundMaster contains both you and a dog, who I do not remember the name of. You can send the dog out through 2 commands, one being the chase command, which is your assault ability. It'll run in a straight line, but also has some curving capabilities depending on the objects in front of you. It will not be able to completely round them, but it can go around them if it's on a perfect enough angle. You are also able to recontrol the dog for a short duration after it reaches the end of its pathing, and to send it on another identical running path. If the dog comes into collision with any of the survivors in its way, it'll grab onto the first survivor it hits and then start trying to drag them towards you for a certain amount of time. If you do not hit the survivor within enough time frame, the survivor will break free and be able to get away. Survivors can also be helped to be freed by another survivor if they are nearby, and survivors can also stun the dog if they so happen to be right next to a pallet while they are being grabbed. The other ability is the search ability. You can command the dog to go to either a specific location or any generator, if you so desire, including the exit door levers, and the dog will initially go towards the location you told it to, and create a pathing in which that it is going to get there. If you are following along on this path, you will gain a 50% increased movement speed, equaling out to a sprint burst movement speed, until the dog has finished its search. Also, while the dog is searching, it has an initial radius in which will grow over time as it is progressing towards the location. Any survivors who get within this radius will receive the Hound Sense effect for 60 seconds. Survivors under the influence of the Hound Sense effect, if they are injured, will receive the Deep Wound sound effect, and if they are downed, they will also receive a louder grunting of pain effect while they are on the floor. After casting either of these actions, there is a 5-second cooldown before you are able to use the dog's capabilities again. It's also worth noting that the dog is able to vault over pallets as well as windows if you are commanding it to, and the path so goes in that direction. After doing so, it'll continue on the path that was foreshowed to you beforehand. One final note is the fact that the dog is technically able to injure survivors itself, but it has to come in contact with them while they are already vaulting that animation, so that way, since they can't grab it, they will instead do a damage state. While this will never initially happen, it's good to know in case you ever notice that happen. Moving on to the killer's 3 brand new perks. Starting off with All Shaking Thunder. After falling from a height of any distance, as long as it's not like a millimeter, your lunge attack will be increased by 75% for a total of 8, 12, or 16 seconds based on the level, and the perk has a 5-second cooldown. It's also worth noting that during this whole duration, you can continue to have this extended distance. It is not just for the first attack you use after landing. Next up is a new Scourge Hook, Jagged Compass. At the start of the trial, up to 4 random hooks are turned into Scourge Hooks, and you can see their auras in white. When a survivor is unhooked from a non-Scourge Hook, it becomes a Scourge Hook. When you hook a survivor on a Scourge Hook, the aura of the generator with the most progress is revealed in yellow for 10 seconds. Now, it's also worth noting that if you have perk that involves survivors getting off of a hook, if it's a Scourge Hook, for example, Bloods of Rage will also activate if it is even during the time that it's transitioning into a Scourge Hook. Finally, No Quarter. When a survivor reaches 75% of a self-heal specifically, they are faced with continuous skill checks. If one of these skill checks is missed or the heal is interrupted, the survivor becomes broken for 20, 25, or 30 seconds. It's basically the merciless storm of self-healing. And finally, we have the new survivor, Taurie Cain, who comes with 3 interesting new perks. Starting off with a brand new invocation perk, Treacherous Crows. It activates identically to Weaving Spiders, where it's a 60-second cast time in the basement, and you get broken for the rest of the trial. The effect that you gain is when a survivor is in the terror radius of the killer and the killer scares a crow, their aura is revealed for all survivors for 2 seconds. After that, we have Clean Break. After you finish healing another survivor, after that, while being healed by another survivor, press the Ability 1 button to gain Broken. After 80, 70, or 60 seconds, you become healthy. The perk does not activate if you're already broken, and it is cancelled if you go into the dying state. Finally, Shoulder the Burden. Once per trial, as long as you are not on Death Hook, press Active Ability 2 in front of a hook survivor to unhook them. When they are unhooked, they lose 1 hook state and you gain their hook state. You also scream because exposed for 60, 50, and 40 seconds. Alright, as one final set of patch notes of the changes going from the public desk build going into live, the majority of them have to do with the changes to the HoundMaster. Now, completed generators will now appear as a light orange to the HoundMaster, and survivors afflicted with the Hound Sense now appear bright red to the HoundMaster. DevNote says this will allow the HoundMaster to target generators at unlimited range wherever she is on the map. This will boost her ability to cover large areas of the map while running on the search path. After that, they've increased the search command's starting Hound Sense size to 2.5, which was 1.5. Apparently this wasn't working correctly, and I can attest to that because it was basically non-existent. They have also increased the HoundMaster's movement speed bonus while running on the search paths to 6.0, meters per second, which used to be 5.2. That is a 50% speed increase. You have the equivalency of a sprint burst while following the path now. The search command's detection zone to target objects has been increased, and it now is easier to aim. Basically, it'll lock onto targets such as generators and other things more easier because you had to be extremely precise before. They've also reduced the search command's cooldown from 5 seconds to 0.5 seconds, so it's pretty much instantaneous if you use the search command. But note, it's only for the search, not for the hunt. DevNotes says search command had some unfortunate bugs in the PTB, but we're still able to notice it was undertuned. Thanks to your feedback, we realized that it wasn't particularly excelling at the intention of letting the HoundMaster move at high speed around the map or find survivors. We made some significant changes to the movement speed and the hound sense radius around Snug, name of the dog by the way. With the reduction in the cooldown time, we're confident that this will allow the duo to move quickly to a location, find survivors, and start threatening them with the chase command immediately. They have also increased the chase command acceleration of the dog to 32 meters a second from 29 meters a second. They've also increased the chase command redirect linger time to 1 second instead of 0.7 seconds. They've also reduced the chase command camera transition time to the HoundMaster and to the dog, and vice versa, when activating the redirect to 0.25 seconds from half a second. DevNote says the feedback received for the PTB show that the players found the chase command fun and satisfying, however, the redirect had issues that needed to be addressed. It feels great to land one, but failing to catch someone often leaves Portia in a less than desirable position, and survivors gaining a lot of distance. Whilst it still feels rewarding, it does have a very high skill floor, so by increasing Snug's acceleration, it should give killers more time to turn, aim, and send Snug even faster on a second mad dash at a survivor. Finally, as a perk change, Shoulder the Burden, they've increased the exposed duration from 30, 25, and 20 to 60, 50, and 40 seconds. DevNote says we felt the exposed time of the perk was too short for how strong the perk can be for trading hook states with another player. We wanted to ensure that the risk/reward factor was more balanced. Alright, and that'll be every single change and addition for the 8.4.0 update featuring the new chapter Doomed Course. I hope you guys enjoyed this. I know I've been gone a little while, as I always am. Let's just say I've been a little busy playing some certain games for certain variations of time, but it is the way it is. I'd like to also thank my buddy Josh, infamously known also as Foolish Boy, for helping me make this video, because he's pretty much been the survivor in the background that wasn't an AI every time. So yeah, if you guys enjoyed this, I'm gonna be the usual YouTuber and just say like it and sub if you really enjoyed it. Honestly, I don't even care if you like it. Just comment what you think. Tell me what you think of the patch notes or what you thought of the video. I really do appreciate the interaction. It's fun. Anyways, enough of my yapping. I hope you guys enjoyed this, and I'll see you all in the next one.